Good evening, Penn Branch. Welcome to our February General Body Meeting and our Black History Month celebration. I'm Jacqueline Cannon, the president of the Penn Branch Citizen Civic Association. I'm officially calling the meeting to order. I always like to start off with a few brief community updates so that I can share as much information as I can remember with the community. I wrote some things down tonight, so I'm sure to cover a few things. The first thing I want to do is welcome all of you that are here this evening. Thank you for coming out and supporting our community event, particularly this awesome night where we have some very special guests with us. Ms. Ashley Emerson, she's Executive Director from the Mayor's Office of African American Affairs. She's up front here. And we also have our illustrious, our very own visionary pastor, activist, and just all around just wonderful, wonderful person. My pastor, Reverend Willie F. Wilson, he's going to be presenting, sharing with us later this evening. So we look forward to hearing the message that he has to bring. As a few housekeeping items, we of course do have food in the back. Please take an opportunity to grab a bit. And as I always like to do at the beginning of every meeting, if there's been some notable events that have happened in the community, I like to take a moment to acknowledge those events. And it's one unfortunate event that I want to highlight this evening in case our neighbors aren't aware. But our very own Ms. Gladys Dorn Hall has made her transition. I believe it was about a week ago now. She was affectionately known in the community as our godmother, and you might remember seeing her smiling face, just so prissy and so feisty, and would always ask questions at the meetings and participate in every event just about that we hosted. So her presence is certainly going to be missed. We received the funeral arrangements for her scheduled for, Ms. Gladys Dorn Hall will lie in state at McGuire Funeral Home located at 7400 Georgia Avenue, Northwest Washington, on Saturday, February 15th from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. And the service will actually start at 11. The interment will follow immediately after the services at the Clear Hill Cemetery. So I'd like to all of us to just take a moment to have a moment of silence for Ms. Gladys and remember all that she meant to us. Okay. And also in honor of all of our ancestors during this Black History Month, I just would like to say that we've got a rich history in Washington, D.C. In the February newsletter, I tried to highlight not only some of the notable African Americans, but also some of the unsung heroes, the ones that we may not talk about or remember very often. So if you have not received your February newsletter, please take a moment to look at those names and maybe even have your kids or your grandkids do some research on some of those notable individuals. I'd like to just honor my ancestors. I had the pleasure of doing my DNA testing a few years ago, and on my maternal side, our ancestry or lineage traced all the way back to Nigeria, and on the paternal side, it traced all the way back to Angola and the Ubuntu people. And as I did my research, I discovered that Queen Nzinga was a mighty leader, warrior, negotiator. She fought against the enslavement of the Ubuntu people against the Portuguese. So I know where I get some of my feistiness from and some of my negotiating and business skills directly from Queen Nzinga through that lineage. So I'm very proud of it, and would encourage all of you, if you have not had your DNA testing done, I would highly recommend African Ancestry. They're a Black-owned business located right here in Maryland, Silver Spring, Maryland, and can get your results back quickly. At the back table, we have some handouts if you haven't received them already. We've got the minutes from the January meeting. We've got the January Treasurer Report. Also, some information on a new program that I received from DDOT today, the Dockless Bike 2020 program. If you want to use some of these, what I call the little scooters or the little devices to scoot around town in, there are programs to offer some reduced pricing or free access to those vehicles. So please take advantage of that program. In fact, I was sharing with someone coming over here this evening that I love living in Washington, D.C. Every day I discover more and more programs that are free for the residents. Last month I think I highlighted in the newsletter about the Parks and Recreation, all the programs that are available. Actually, I think it's February newsletter. I learned about all the programs that are available for the toddlers, for the adults, for the seniors. Everything ranging from nutrition classes to gardening classes to swimming and a whole host of other opportunities that you can take advantage of. And camps for the kids too, by the way. So please reach out and take advantage of those. And I will kind of preempt Ms. Ashley. There's a whole table over there from the D.C. Mayor's Office of African American Affairs that has quite a few giveaways. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out around the corner there, please do so. And speaking of the February newsletters, they were distributed on this past weekend. I don't know if we have any extra copies in the back, but certainly see our stand-man, our block captain.
They're back there.
Pardon me?
They're back there.
They are? Okay, excellent. Well, grab a copy if you have not received yours already. A couple of other key events that are coming up that I wanted to highlight. One is we received a request from the Hillcrest Community Association, to partner with them in hosting a candidate forum for Ward 7 coming up very soon. They've reached out to all the presidents of the associations in Ward 7 and asked us to come together to help sponsor a forum where the council members or candidates for a council member seat for Ward 7 can come and you have an opportunity to ask questions and really get a little bit more insight on what their position is on issues that may matter to you the most. So stay tuned for information about that event. Like I said, we're just starting the planning for it now, so we'd really like to have a full house once we get that scheduled. And another meeting that's coming up on this Thursday that I'll be facilitating is a leadership meeting with our partners from here at Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church, Pastor Curry, the association leaders. We're coming together to really just have a conversation and to share information about all the initiatives, the individual initiatives, the task force initiatives that have taken place in regards to the development along the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor east of the river. And the goal is to see to review the comprehensive plan, identify where the gaps are in the plan that we might be able to influence collectively going forward. So that's just an initial conversation that we want to have to kind of get everybody on the same page, to share information and understand what we can do to perhaps influence development going forward. And there are some other meetings coming up. There's a lot happening, y'all. I can't even keep up with it all. There's a budget meeting that's being hosted tomorrow. The mayor's hosting a budget meeting tomorrow evening, I believe it is. No? Oh, the 18th. Okay. Well, there are pocket guides and other information that Ms. Ashley has over on her table. We try to keep the information disseminated via social media, via Penn Branch Google groups, and I think Jimmy is working Twitter for us. So just keep abreast and pay attention to all those announcements and things that comes across your email. With that, I'll probably take more time than I probably should. I'm going to pass the baton now to Kyle to read the minutes from the January 2020 meeting. Well, actually, we may not have time to read all the minutes, but at least least want to acknowledge them and give them a chance to highlight a few things with you. So without further ado, Kyle Murphy, our Penn Branch Secretary.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Good evening, everyone. Excuse my voice, I'm getting over a cold, but as Jacqueline said, I won't read everything in the minutes. There are copies available on the table, and I have a few as well up here if anybody'd like to get the details. I'll really emphasize that in our January meeting, we held an education panel discussion. The members of that education panel discussion were Ms. Karen Williams, President of the DC State Board of Education. She hosted Mr. Ambrose Lane Jr., the chair of the Health Alliance Network, and a parent and PTO member from Ann Beers Elementary School, also presented. Dr. Faith Gibson-Hubbard, the executive director of Thrive by 5 DC, is responsible for early childhood development and education. Miss Ebony Rose Thompson, the chair of the Ward 7 Education Council. And lastly, Ms. Kalita Boyd from the University of District of Columbia, all presented on the work that they and their organizations are doing. And in the minutes, there is contact information, websites, additional information that you can consult there. In the remainder of the meeting, we did our typical committee and officer updates, and we concluded with an update on the situation with respect to legal action against the association that we've gotten support from the outside counsel to help us resolve this issue. Any questions or follow-up?
You have an update on that, Jimmy? Well, actually, I can get an update on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, everyone, in regards to that copyright infringement claim, the latest update is that the representative for the attorney who's filing the claim against us, they sent another letter in October, basically demanding that we pay what they feel is an infringement on their copyright claim. The public citizens entity that we've engaged with has advised us to provide them with some statistics from the website. We want to basically track to see how many people have had access to the website and that particular picture that they're claiming we violated copyright on. And we're in the process now of getting that information. We'll provide that to the attorney so that he can then take it forth and interface with the law firm on our behalf. He's advised us that he could represent us and provide a letter to the law firm, and at the minimum, he says that the minimum we'd be responsible for is like $200, and that's all that that's all he's going to basically advise us to have to pay. And if Jimmy wants to add some more to that, I'd more than happy to have you come up and share more.
I'll make this real quick. So it's not a lawsuit, but basically it is a shakedown by a law firm, Gigaby and Associates. What they do is troll the internet looking for any photos that have been posted. So a while back, historically, what we did with 7-Eleven, they asked us to post something, a notification about an event they were having. We did. 7-Eleven said which picture we can use, and we used the picture on the website. And almost 4 years later, Higbee and Associates tried a shakedown of the community association. First saying if we were a nonprofit that they wouldn't bother us. Then saying that yes, they want money from us. So after repeated asks, we've worked with Public Citizens. That's the group that was started by Ralph Nader. They've written extensively about these kind of shakedowns that they do. Sometimes they are legally correct but ethically wrong. So the whole idea is that they've asked us to really build an argument about it, around it, that at maximum we should be paying is $200, which is really telling them this is all it is worth. 7-Eleven wasn't aware of it, of the license, but those people that were at 7-Eleven when they opened are no longer there. So we'll keep you posted, and again, they've asked us to provide data, and we have a very good attorney that's representing us. Paul Levy has been working with Public Citizens for more than 30 years. He's been on television, the Washington Post, so we've really got a good person that's been working with us on this. So again, we will keep you keep you posted. Thanks, Chairman.
Jimmy, how much are they seeking?
I'm sorry?
How much are they seeking in the lawsuit?
Well, initially, they were trying to seek as much as they could get. They never would specify an amount. They never would prove a violation of the license. They never would produce the documents that they requested. I think initially they were asking in the thousands of dollars to answer your question. But after speaking with Paul Levy, who has written extensively on it, his solution is $200 and a note to make them go away. But again, if you Google them, you'll see that they've done this regularly and to almost any organization. And some organizations have gotten afraid and paid, but a majority of them are now starting to fight back.
Thank you, Jimmy. And thank you, Kyle. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that the minutes be accepted as read and as indicated.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any more copies?
Copies,
We looked over there.
well, we may not have any more hard copies
Oh,
tonight,
okay.
but
Okay.
we'll send out an email to you if you get us your information before we leave. Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes? Say aye.
Okay, let me say this. Until people have read the minutes, they cannot accept the minutes because they have not read them to see if there's something that they want to make additions or deletions from. Just give them about 2 minutes, those that have not.
Okay, we can table that for now. We'll come back to close the motion in a few minutes. After, next up on the agenda is Officer Marble from the PSA 6 district. He's going to give us the crime report, and then we'll have our next speaker come up.
Good evening, Penn Branch. Hello, everyone. You all want to hear about crime? I'm done. You want to hear good news?
Yes.
That don't go together. Crime and don't go together. It's a little low, but it's not where we expected because the weather been so nice this winter. Okay? But it hurt us. Crime statistics. Okay, we're not bad. When I looked at the crime statistics and the mapping software that we have, Penn Branch community as a whole, you're not being messed with. I don't see the crime in your community. It's outside of your community. We're having some car thefts lately, and they're stealing car tires and rims. That's down on the Twining Park area down in Fairlawn Avenue. That's been going on around like 3 in the morning. So we're dealing with that also, okay? But your community as a whole, you all don't really have the crime, okay? 7-Eleven is being messed with a little bit, but they're stealing consumable items like potato chips, candy bars. So that's considered a theft. You know, that drives the crime. But I'm gonna read off, we already did January. The first page was dealing with January, but the second page I did from February 1st to today's date, okay? And as of February 1st to today's date, we had 0 homicides. We haven't had none this year in 605, so that's excellent. 0 sex abuse cases, 0 robberies excluding gun, 0 robberies with a gun. We have 1 assault with dangerous weapon excluding gun. We had 1, that gave us a total of 1 violent crime in the past basically 10 days, okay? We had 0 burglaries. We had 6 thefts, 6 theft from autos, 0 stolen autos, 0 arsons, which gave us total property crimes was 12. A year ago, the same time frame, we had 4. And total crimes, we had 13. A year ago, the same time frame, we had 6. Okay, so that's where we stand right now. Any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
So, how's the citywide murder rate? We keep reading, rather alarming stories about it. How's it?
I don't have those numbers, Lieutenant. Do you have any numbers on the citywide?
I'm not prepared to.
Yeah, we don't have the citywide. We wasn't prepared to do citywide
Not
numbers.
problem, not
Okay.
problem.
I want to invite you all to our community meetings that we have, which is you can have a more in-depth talk with the police department with any concerns, complaints, or good things we've done. Tomorrow is 6:05, so it's part of your community. And if you don't know what 6:05 is, it's everything on this side of Pennsylvania Avenue, from 295 all the way up to Southern Avenue. And basically, we go north over to Eli, okay, with a Fort DuPont skating rink. That's our border area there, okay. And we go as far over all of Fort DuPont Park, Ridge Road, from Southern Ridge Road all the way down where the rec center is, all the way to Texas Avenue, okay. And we have a few streets behind Ridge Road, which is Adrian Street, G Street, Hillside. We have a few streets back there also. So if you're within our community, we'd like you to come out to the substation tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Okay, that way you can fuss at us. We can talk with you for an hour straight. Okay, and if you're in the 606 community, which is everything on from here on the other side of south side of Pennsylvania Avenue, all of Branch Avenue, Alabama Avenue, that corridor up to Southern Avenue. Their meeting is every third Wednesday at East Washington View Baptist Church at Alabama and Branch Avenue at 6 p.m. So every third Wednesday. 6:05 is every second Wednesday of the month. Okay? And if you're in 607 Patrol Service area, their meeting is every fourth Wednesday, which is at the Dream Center at 2826 Q Street, Southeast, at 6:30 p.m. So we would like for you all to come out, fuss, we can hear your concerns, take notes, and we can collab on ways to mitigate your concerns, okay? Any other concerns? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Officer Marlowe. We appreciate you. So moving on in our program, we're just about on schedule here. One piece of old business I'd like to mention is we still need volunteers to join our nominating committee. Everyone knows that 2020 is our election year for new officers. The nominating committee is responsible for presenting a slate of officers for the coming administrative year. So please, everyone, always wants to chime in and voice, concerns or give us pushback or whatever about different things. Now's your opportunity to get engaged to help support the association and help us bring in a strong group of officers for the new administration. Yes, Ms. Paul.
I just want to nominate Mr. Mackie McCray and Mr. Anthony and Mr. Owens to be part of the nominating committee. They've been good block captains, and I think this gives them an opportunity to reach out to the rest of the community.
Okay, well, can I have each one of them see one of the officers after the meeting so
Absolutely.
that we can... Elson, unfortunately, is not here. Elson's our corresponding secretary. He's the chairperson for that committee. But if you would get us your names, we will certainly pass them on to Elson, and he'd be in contact with you.
I'll just send him the list.
Thank you.
And I'll CC the rest of the board.
Thank you very much. Now moving on to our first guest speaker. We're really excited to have Ms. Ashley Emerson join us tonight. She was so gracious to join us on such short notice. She's the Executive Director for the Mayor's Office of African American Affairs. And just a little background on Ms. Emerson. She was appointed to serve as Executive Director of the Mayor's Office on African American Affairs by Mayor Muriel Bowser in March of 2019, so almost a year ago. Congratulations. She serves as the Bowser Administration's Chief Advocate on policy, programs, and initiatives impacting African Americans in Washington, D.C., and especially has a warm spot for Ward 7, so we certainly appreciate you in that regard. Ms. Emerson will be sharing about current initiatives and how we can take advantage of the services provided by her office. So without further ado, I'll present to you Ms. Ashley Emerson. Thank you.
Hello, Penn Branch. How are you all this evening? Good. Thank you so much for having me. Again, Ashley Emerson, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office on African American Affairs, and very proud to be here on behalf of the Bowser administration to celebrate Black History Month with all of you. And I just want to thank this community, your president and your board, for having a Black History Month meeting. I said this is the first one that I've ever been invited to. So let's give a round of applause for the community and the leadership of your community. So I just wanted to share why we have our Office of African American Affairs. A lot of the times in the community, people ask, why do we have the Office of African American Affairs? And I'm very proud to talk about the advocacy, the advising, the convening, the connecting residents to resources, all that we do. But back in 2010, the 2020 census, we saw a decline in African American population, a decline in the population. And former Mayor Marion Barry introduced legislation in 2011 to create a commission on African American affairs, in which it's a 27-body commission. 10 of those members are ex officio members, which we have representatives from key agencies in government. And then we also have a 17-body public member commission, a public member committee that's a part of the commission that represents the different neighborhoods throughout all 8 wards of the city. And so there's full representation. We meet every 3rd Wednesday, and we have information about that. But we ask that you share your concerns. And so what we do typically is just have a business meeting like you all do here, but we open it up for public comment. And that's where you can share your concerns about specific policies that the mayor may have introduced, or city council, or some budgetary items or programs that you would like to see. And so we definitely want to invite you to share your feedback there. And then in 2014, because most of the commissioners are public members, they're volunteers, so they don't have time to do our work. And so the Mayor Bowser put in a mayor's order to create the Mayor's Office on African American Affairs. And that's the work that we lead. And our particular charge is to make sure that African American constituencies are getting access to this full government that we have. So everything from DOES to our Department of Aging, to our Metropolitan Police Department, to our fire and EMS, our small businesses, all across government. We want to make sure that African Americans are accessing these programs and making any recommendations for things that they want to see. And so our office we have a team of 2, which is myself and Mr. Lionel Gaines, who's in the back there. He's our associate director. And so what we do, we rely on our commissioners, we rely on our volunteers, and we rely on our agencies to make sure that the work is getting done on your behalf. And so the other piece of this is making sure that we advise the mayor and council on specific legislation. And so I know you all have benefited in Penn Branch from the Neighborhood Prosperity Fund. That was a part of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development to create gap funding for projects such as your Penn Branch project. And so a lot of that came from meetings with members from the community to say that, you know, there's not enough development east of the river. And so how do we, Mayor, how do we make sure that our communities in Ward 7 and 8 get access to some of the other developments happening west of the river? And so these types of programs are created from feedback. And I just wanted to point that out. The other big thing this year that we're focusing on is Census 2020. How many of you know that Census 2020 will be online this year? Okay, all right, that's some hands.
In our newsletter.
Right, okay.
The October newsletter.
Yes, and so Census 2020 will be online, And I am leading the East of the River Subcommittee, so you may be seeing me a lot more in Ward 7 and 8 in regards to census. And we want to make sure everyone gets counted. Everyone in your household, come, I believe, March 12th through 20th, you'll receive an invitation in the mail to note that the census will be online. How many of you all have access to online? Okay, and if there's anyone here that doesn't have access, please see us. I'm sure we could help in assistance from Octo, or Comcast has some really amazing programs as well. But we want to make sure that people are getting counted, because that relates right into the budget, right? And so when we talk about how many grocery stores we have, because I'm also a Ward 7 resident, how many how much funding are our schools getting? Our rec centers, our senior programs, we have to be mindful that that information is calculated by the census. But most importantly, your ANC and your council boundaries will potentially change. And so that information is very vital to make sure that we know how many people are living in Ward 7, how many, what's the household makeup of these different households, so we can make sure that the right resources are allocated. So Census 2020 Day is April 1st, but again, you will be getting something, invitation in the mail to note that you can go online to take it. Another program that we have, we've been really focusing on economic mobility for African American families here in the district, because we know the more money or income you have, the better you're able to access a variety of programs, your schools, your education, your health care improves. It's always tied to your economic status. And so we have a program called Financially Fit DC. How many of you all have heard of it? Okay, good, that's awesome. All right, yeah, newsletter. Good, thank you. That's awesome. And so we have this program where it's an online platform. You don't have to leave your home, but you can basically manage your finances and look at different modules that help you budget or save, or some family planning or estate planning, and some investing as well. And so on February 24th, and we have flyers here, we're going to be in Shepherd Park. I know that's far from here, but we spent some time in Ward 7, and Ward 4 said, hey, what about Ward 4? So we're going to Shepherd Park Library to talk about estate planning for families. And basically, we'll have some experts there to talk about what does that mean for making sure your home, whatever your wealth portfolio looks like. How do you transition that on? How do you make sure your family is good and able to stay here in the district? Because that's really our goal. This office was created to make sure that African Americans can not only stay here, but thrive here in the district for generations to come. And that's why I'm here, that's why my team is here, and that's why I'm here. Make sure that we have what we need to do that. The final thing I wanted to talk about was Porch Fest DC. How many of you all had attended Porch Fest last year? Great, okay, well, we hope to see all of your hands raised for this year. We're partnering with the Porch Fest team again to make sure that resources are allocated to ensure that, our communities in Penn Branch and Hillcrest and Ward 7 have the same access and amenities such as communities west of the river. And so that's really important for us to make sure that you all have enjoy it, and we definitely want to partner more this year with a lot of things that you all are doing. And in your seat here, we have just an infographic from the Office of Planning, just to show you what the population of African Americans here in the district. And so we're about at 46%. And you can see some of the stats. Education, most are women, I think at 55%. Most live east of the river, which is in Ward 7 and 8. And it's good for us to know that, so that we can understand where our dollars need to go. So if you take a moment to look at that, and then the FY21 budget pocket guide. This is probably the most important thing I'll say all night. Mayor Bowser is hosting 3 engagement forums. We just had the last one, the senior town hall this past week. And this pocket guide shows you where the mayor plans to, how things are allocated, how the budget is allocated. And so there's a timeline of what you can expect for engagement, the timeline for the mayor to submit the budget, and the different pocket areas. So this, I want to note this in particular, this is from FY20. So this is last year's budget that's already been approved. We just wanted to show you all what it looks like and give you some ideas on how you can engage and make recommendations. And the mayor wants to hear from you. She made that very clear to me and to us. So budget.dc.gov, which is on the back here, you can submit online. There's an online template that you could just populate and put in your information. But also, we'd love to see you at the budget engagement forums in person. The mayor, the leadership, the cabinet leaders will be there. The different agencies will be on site to make sure that they hear from you. And so if you have things tonight, I'd be happy to take them up, but I'd love to see you all there. Okay? Yes.
I registered for one date. Is it okay to switch if you can't make the date that you've already signed up for?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So there are 3, and I think the one in Ward 7 is at Ikenor, and that's February 22nd, but they're all over the city. I think we're doing 3 this year. But yes, you can change the dates. All right. Well, thank you all so much, and we're here. Our office is here for you in the future.
All right, moving on into the program. Just to piggyback off what Ashley said in regards to Porch Fest, not only is the DC African American Affairs Office partnering with Porch Fest, but Penn Branch has also been asked to partner with them as well. And I've had several conversations with Ayana, one of the coordinators for Penn Branch. Everyone hopefully knows that Porch Fest is going to be in the Penn Branch community this year. That's what the plans are. Yes, and Ayana and the planning committee is working diligently now to get all the approvals, and because the process has changed a little bit this year, but myself and I believe my daughters, I volunteered her to join the planning committee as well. So we'll keep the community informed as to what's coming in regards to Porch Fest and how everybody, I think she's looking for host homes. If you'd like to add your name to the list to be a host home to support one of the bands, please let her know. And also take advantage of all the other programs that Ashley mentioned. We've got a rich supply of resources here in the district, so please take advantage of them. And without further ado, because the evening is getting away from us, I want to just introduce to some and present to others my pastor, Reverend Willie F. Wilson. He's from Newport News, Virginia, and he's ordained as Nana Kwadwo Boafo I, a Wolof priest in Gambia, West Africa. He's very much at home in Anacostia, where for the past 46 years, I believe now, he's been the senior pastor of Union Temple Baptist Church, the world-renowned Union Temple Baptist Church. He recently retired from ministry, full-time ministry, a couple of months ago. So we are just delighted to have his presence here with us tonight to bring us our Black History Month message. And if you've never had an opportunity to hear Pastor Wilson speak or present, he is dynamic. He speaks from the heart, speaks from the truth, speaks from a historical perspective, and you will get an awesome history lesson. I had the pleasure of getting one last week, one-on-one from him, and it was just mind-blowing. But I really appreciate him. I've been under his leadership at Union Temple for over 20 years now, and I must say he's been very influential in my life, my family's life, and we love him and his family dearly. So without further ado, Penn Branch Citizen Civic Association, Reverend Willie F. Wilson.
Let me say good evening to everyone. And I really don't need an introduction. I think everyone in here knows the length of time that I've been in this community, particularly in this neighborhood. I moved in this neighborhood in June of 1985. So I've been here quite a while. Let me just pause a moment and give honor to God first for this blessed privilege, and to the executive officers of this association, to all of you, my neighbors and friends. It is indeed an honor for me to be here on tonight. Let me just be as brief and concise as I can in sharing, of course. If I were to do justice to the African American vote, it would probably take me 5 or 6 hours. But I'm going to try to cut that down to 4.5 tonight. We can get it done. To talk about, and President Jackie asked that I speak from a theme that was put forth by the Association for the Study of African American History, which of course was founded by Carter G. Woodson in 1926, and who he as well founded Black History Month. That theme is the African American vote. When we talk about history, I think is best understood in terms of psychohistory, and that is the psychological result of undergoing certain experiences and the effect that those experiences have on one's attitudes and behaviors. This is particularly important when we talk about the African American vote, because then we have to talk about the crucial events and watershed experiences that have shaped our mentalities, our behaviors and attitudes as related to voting. Any helping professional, be they a psychologist, sociologist, psychiatrist, when they are dealing with people who have problems that they need to have addressed, they're not so necessarily interested in that person's name or address, but they want to know the crucial events and the watershed experiences that have shaped them and made them function as they function, behave as they do what they do, think what they think, and act like they act. So in a very brief time, I would like to talk about the history, which will give us an understanding of what it means in terms of an understanding of the African American vote. I was down in Selma, Alabama in 2017 to be inducted into the Civil Rights Hall of Fame Museum there. And I joined in with tens of thousands of politicians and entertainers and corporate executives and just common citizens who were part of a commemoration of the march across the Norman Pettus Bridge to commemorate the fight, the struggle for the right to vote. And all of you know in that particular situation, many people, African Americans are not alone, but whites as well, who were beaten, even shot and killed, trying to secure the right to vote. As I sat in my room at the James Hotel, which, if you've ever been to Selma, just in being in the hotel itself, you would think that you were living in 1940 or 1950. And as I looked out and I saw the crumbling infrastructure, I saw dilapidated buildings that brought to my mind the realities that though many people bled, suffered, and died, gave their lives for that right to vote right there on that bridge in Selma, Alabama, no appreciable difference had taken place in Selma, Alabama after 52 years. When we think about that, and think about the fact that there's no difference, when we look at the fact that even now 40% unemployment in Selma, even now most people living under the poverty level, and the fact that Selma is still called the third world of Alabama, kind of speaks to the realities of what has occurred in terms of our understanding of history. So to deal with this theme, if I might just for a moment, African Americans and the vote, it seems to be a kind of a vague statement to me. Seems to be somewhat of an open-ended statement to me, because that theme does not say who to vote for, what to vote for, but simply says 2020, the African American vote. As we think about that, of course, there are many who would proffer notions as to why it is critical and important for African Americans to vote, and it is. But those answers as to, as I would suggest then, that question begs the question, that statement rather, begs the question, what are they talking about voting for? Who are they talking about voting for? What does that statement really mean? 2020, the African American vote. Some would say, well, it means, and I guess it even is indicative, and the implication is that it's suggesting that the vote is important. And the question becomes, why is it then important? Some would say, well, it's important, and I know it probably be everybody raising their hand on this, it's important in 2020 so that we can get Donald Trump out of office as the President of the United States. Somebody else might say, it's important because our ancestors died for the right to vote, and because they gave their blood, sweat, and tears, and even their lives, that we owe them in terms of our responsibility and our respect for them, that we ought to vote. But I would suggest to them, though they be good reasons, they are not good enough to say to us that we ought to vote in the upcoming election. They're good reasons, but there are some questions that have to be raised today. And here are a couple of the questions I want to raise just for a few moments, and I hope I can do this in about 15 minutes. Number one, will your vote in 2020 change the lot of the masses of African American people in these United States? If you vote, given the fact that the vote is precious, powerful, sacred, important, because of this struggle that we have gone through for all these tens of centuries, or rather tens of scores of years to vote. It is powerful, it is sacred, it is important, it does have worth, it is precious. But if it's so precious, and if it's so powerful, and if it's so important, the question for African Americans is, why do we give it away? There's a Latin expression that all of us are familiar with now, perhaps not before this year, but because of the congressional hearings about the impeachment of President Donald Trump, all of us know the Latin phrase, quid pro quo. Now, it's sophisticated sounding, it's nice sounding, but all it means is, I give you something. Donald Trump made that clear, didn't he? I give you something, and you give me something. Quid pro quo, we become very important. And the question becomes, why is it at voting time, all of a sudden, probably for that one time of the year of election time, that African Americans become very important? Otherwise, we're not deemed to be in this society, in this culture, to be deemed to be that important until election time. That does not just go for national elections, but for local elections as well. Politicians start coming by to churches and holding your babies and talking to you for a minute until election is over. Then quite often you don't see them or even hear them anymore until election time again. And yet leaders, those who profess to be his, that is, say vote, vote, while you experience the highest unemployment, while you experience the lowest net worth of families in the United States of America, even right here in Washington, D.C. The latest studies of the Urban Institute, the average net worth of a white person in Washington, D.C. is $235,000. For an African American, it's $3,500. 81 times more the net worth of a white household in Washington, D.C. than an African American household, and yet we're told to vote. We have the highest unemployment rate. We have the highest incarceration rate. We have the lowest net worth, and those who profess to be leaders say, just vote. And we all too often become so proud to put our little sticker on that says, I voted, and walk out of that voting booth only to experience another disappointment of broken hopes, of not seeing those things that were promised and were talked about, and in a sense becoming a reality. The fact of the matter is we end up giving a whole lot of quid, but very little quo. After we have given that vote, there is not that reciprocal return. Over the last 3 elections, African Americans have given somewhere between 93 and 95% of their vote. All quid, but no quo. After the election is over, even in the elections of Obama in 2008, 2012, greatest turnout in the history of the African American community. And aside from the Affordable Health Care Act, I would dare say, it's not anybody in here can talk about any appreciable difference in the condition of the masses of African American people in this country. Not just in this country, in this city. I need not go through a long litany of all of the shortcomings that continue to afflict and affect us as a people in this community and even nationwide. And the reality is because we have not demanded or commanded some quo for our quid. We simply give it up. But when you look at it, let me rush through this in another 10 minutes, and I'm going to do it. I think you can do it if you just pray for me real hard. The electoral, the entire basis of the electoral system in America is based on the African American vote. The system of election of the President of the United States, if you know the history, you know that originally they wanted George Washington to be a king and rule forever until he died. George Washington said, no, I don't want to do that. I'll run 2 terms and then I'll retire. So then they were left with the Constitutional Convention in 1787 to figure out how are we going to have a president? And of course, there was the contention between the North and the South about how this is going to be done. And then some crucial questions came up. John Wilson asked the question, out of some 75 persons who were invited to attend the Constitutional Convention, only about 48 showed up. But the question came up, what are we going to do about poor whites? And what are we going to do about slaves? Those were two crucial issues as relates to how they elect the President of the United States. John Adams said, we can't have poor white people and black people, slaves that is, elected the President of the United States. It needs to be worthy men of means who have a reputation who should elect the President of the United States. Thomas Jefferson said, no, the people should vote. Out of that came the Connecticut Compromise. In the Connecticut Compromise, the North had some states that had more citizens, if you will, than southern states. For example, Massachusetts had more people than Virginia. But the South, vying for power in this situation, said, okay, well, let us count our slaves. The North said, oh no, you can't do that. Because you got all those slaves down south, you got more than we got up north, and you would elect the president. And so out of that came the Connecticut Compromise. And what did they decide in the Connecticut Compromise? They decided that each state will have 2 senators. Each state will have 1 representative per 40,000 residents. Then change that to 30,000. So Massachusetts, for example, would have had more representatives in Congress than Virginia. But the Connecticut Compromise was based on the slave rule. And the slave rule was, we are going to, this is where we get 3/5 of a vote, or 3/5 of a human being. Our ancestors as 3/5 of a human being. Okay, we will count every slave as 3/5 of a human being. And therefore, when they counted the number of slaves in Virginia, you should know that for the first 36 years in America, all of the presidents of the United States of America were slave owners from Virginia except one. Because Virginia had all these slaves who were counted as 3/5 of a human being, which made them have more people in their state than, say, as it was in Massachusetts. And so they had 6 more representatives in Congress and in the Electoral College. And so that, and you might say it this way, the African American vote, though we could not vote, I guess you would call us voting by absentee ballot. Because they counted every one of us as 3/5 of a human being and added that to the total for the southern states, so that, in particular, as I mentioned, Virginia had all of those slaves in their state, and therefore every president came from those states. So that what I want to suggest to you is that from the very incipiency of the founding of this nation, from its very foundation, the African American has been the backbone of the election process in terms of the national elections in this country, because of the makeup and the rule that was passed, which was called the slave rule, which allowed them to count every slave as 3/5 of a human being. So then, from that period, if I could go through this very quickly, 2 more steps and we'll be there. The next step was then, following the end of slavery, several amendments to the Constitution. following the Emancipation Proclamation in 1865. Then in 1866, the 15th Amendment, the right of black men to vote. Then in 1866, the Civil Rights Act. We talk about civil rights all the way following coming out of slavery. We had public accommodation laws. We could go to any hotel we wanted to. We could eat in any restaurant we wanted to. Black men only, not black women. Black men could vote. The 14th Amendment in 1868, which said that it abolished slavery except that you committed a crime. What did that do? That brought in slavery again by another name. Started with the Black Codes, which lasted only about 3 years. But a black man or a woman, for that matter, could be arrested for any reason. And then a fellow slave owner would serve as the constable or the justice of the peace. And the person would be fined a certain amount of money, which they could not pay. And then the fellow slave owner would raise their hand and say, I'll pay it. And then that person had to go and work for that slave owner until he worked off that $25 fine, which was a lot of money in 1865. So it was another way of reintroducing slavery again. After slavery, 90 years of sharecropping, where slaves were hungry, they had no means to eat or to take care of their families, so they had to rent land. They had to rent a mule. They had to rent a plow. They had to rent slaves. And everything that they worked for in doing that sharecropping for 90 years, some of them made as little as 11 cents for a whole season of growing food or planting because of their being robbed and money being taken. And on top of that, they were paid in chit. Not S-H-I-T, but C-H-I-T. Chit. A piece of paper that the landowner gave to them as pay. Guess what? Had only several weeks. We wonder why it is that we are such great consumers and have to spend everything we get as soon as we get it. We were conditioned to do that because you had only 3 weeks to spend the chit. After that, the chit was no good because it wasn't nothing but chit anyway. Chit. And at the end of 3 weeks, the chit was no good. After all of this, and then from that to 104 years of criminal leasing, chain gang, all of this was precipitated by the betrayal of the Republicans. You have to understand that after the passing of the 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, all of these things combined to make blacks allegiant to Republicans. So African Americans voted for Republicans all the way. Who wouldn't? I can vote now. Who wouldn't? I got civil rights, accommodation, public accommodation laws now. Who wouldn't? I have the right to vote now. And so they voted Republican. And the very first day that black men were eligible to vote, 90% of them went and registered to vote. In Georgia, on the very day that black men were eligible to vote in America, 1,000 of them in the state of Georgia walked 30 miles to register to vote. A journalist from North Roaf of the South Carolina legislature, he said that the Speaker of the House was black, the clerk was black, the pages were black, the doorkeepers were black. Everybody in the state house in South Carolina were African American, and of course we know of the number of African Americans who became congressmen, who became. We had one senator, Senator Blanche Bruce. We even had a governor in the state of Louisiana for a few days. But when the North and the South got together, give me 2 more minutes, I'm through. When the North and the South got together, they cut a deal. When Rutherford B. Hayes became president, all of a sudden, civil rights law and act was abolished. All of a sudden, blacks were being lynched all over again. All of a sudden, the right to vote was being, in one instance they had the 8 ballot vote. What was the 8 ballot vote? They took 8 boxes and lined them up, and all the candidates were in a particular box. And for African Americans, you had to guess which one you wanted to vote for was in which box out of those 8 boxes. And that's how you did or did not get to vote, because there's no way, I don't know what kind of position you could be to figure out which one of those boxes has the one that you want to vote for this particular office. And so when those things began to happen, then in 1896, separate but equal, Supreme Court ruled that segregation is okay, separation is all right, as long as everything is equal. And of course, things weren't equal. Black schools didn't have schools, or if they had schools, they didn't have books. I remember growing up in Virginia in the 50s, the books that we had were the books that were used at the white school that were all used up with pages missing, and then they would send them to our school. The teachers didn't even have chalk to write on the boards. They had to stick a knob of a piece of chalk in an extender so that they could write on the board. Because of 1896 Supreme Court, every right was a bridge that had been set in place following Emancipation Proclamation, so that from 1877 to 1901, every president except one was a Republican. They engaged in pious platitudes about preserving the rights of black people in America and protecting them from the lynchings and everything, but other than mouthing those words, they did absolutely nothing. So then, one more jump and we're there. Then comes the Depression of 1929. When the Depression came, everybody, you know that history, they lost everything. People were starving. And of course, blacks received, African Americans received over 15 million servings of rations so that they could live, because that's how difficult and trying the times, trying for everybody, but multiply it. There's an exponential factor that you have to put in the equation, and whatever the pains and the struggles were for everybody else, multiplied at least 10 times for African Americans. So they suffered. And along comes, and this is where the switch from Republican to Democrat comes. FDR becomes president. And FDR comes up with the New Deal. And he allows, of course, that New Deal. We got a few residual effects of the New Deal, not much. Little. Enough to make us have hope again. 1934, FHA was established. Low down payment, low interest loans for everybody except us. Only 5% all the way up to 1964. From 1934 to 1964, 30 years. African Americans got only 5% of the FHA loans. So that being the major way by which African Americans could attain any kind of wealth, totally left out of the equation. Oh, they had maps, and HUD demanded, directed that every bank have a map, and wherever black people were living, paint red paint on it, or red ink, so that when you went into the bank, they said, "What's your address?" And you gave your address, then they looked at the map and saw that your address was in that section where it had been painted red. And automatically you could not get a loan. Social Security took 30 years for African Americans to get Social Security because they said Social Security cannot be for people who do domestic work and who work on farms. Well, 90% of us, that's what we were doing. They said it was too much paperwork. So you can't get no Social Security. And so all of this occurred, and then come 1965, almost there, I did it. Come 1965, Lyndon Baines Johnson reestablishes the Voting Rights Act. And from 1965 to now, it's automatic. So much so, we're Democratic. So that Joe Biden is audacious enough to say, I got the black vote. What? What have you done to get the black vote? Nothing. But because of the mentality, I started this with the psychological results of undergoing traumatic experiences, crucial events, and watershed experiences that shape a people and mold their behaviors and their mentalities and their attitudes. And so it is that as we have had certain experiences, not understanding even why, the seminal work of Carter G. Woodson was The Miseducation of the Negro. He made the most apt and descriptive picture of why African American people continue to be used and misused and duped, and as Malcolm X said, bamboozled. Because we don't even, when you go through severe trauma, I'm finished. When you go through severe trauma, you don't overcome that overnight. And you develop mentalities and ways of thinking based upon your experiences. And they color your behavior. So that, as you know, I'll say this and I'm finished. One of my members came to me some years ago, husband and wife, they were about to get a divorce. And he was all upset. He came in, he said, he's a contractor. And he said, every time I come home every evening, sometimes I have to work late hours doing home improvements, and I have to push the door open, then I have to wait and see if a pot or a pan is going to fly out the door because my wife is going to attack me. Because she says I'm messing around and I'm out there working. And I asked her, I said, well, what? In addition to that, she had become a user of cocaine. She was all messed up. And I said, why? Has he done anything? Do you know for a fact that he's done anything? That you have this attitude? No. I said, well, you're the only one who knows. Don't you go home and think about it. As fate, or should I say divine providence would have it, she went home that night and the old series Touched by an Angel with Della Reese was playing. And in this particular episode, there was a similar situation that brought contrast with her situation. Because here was this woman who's having trouble in her marriage, and she goes to a psychiatrist, and she lies down on the couch. Psychiatrist takes her back into her childhood, because quite often the experiences that have the greatest impact on us, psychologically speaking, are the ones that we least remember. Because they're deeply embedded down in our subconscious mind, where they can lie dormant for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 years, 50 years. As soon as somebody does something that sounds like, tastes like, smells like, looks like what that experience was, it can be as simple as the expression that they have on their face. It reminds them of how somebody looked when they did such and such way back when. But anyway, the woman in Touched by an Angel, acting, drama, not even real. But she's going to the psychiatrist. Psychiatrist takes her back in her childhood she remembers when she was a child, she had been molested. So meanwhile, sister from Union Temple is lying on her couch. She goes back in her childhood. And she remembers that which was deep in her subconscious. But watching that drama on television brought it back to a conscious level. She came back the next week. She said, I got it. I said, what is it? She said, when I was 5 years old, I got in a little skirmish with this girl. My father and his friend were watching. And the little girl had long hair. And she was light-skinned. And I concluded my father and his friend were laughing, probably because they're laughing at 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. What can they do? It's funny. She concludes they laughing because I'm dark complected and I have kinky hair. And they laughing at me, but they like her, and so all the way through high school she's more attractive than her sister. But when the boys wanted to date her, she said, no, you want to date my sister, not me. So here she is now married with this unresolved conflict deep in her subconscious psyche. She's got to believe that her husband don't really want to be with her because of that experience that was in her gut that she's never dealt with. So in our slave experience, what we have gone through, fighting and struggling for the right to vote, dying for the right to vote, then having our hopes and visions and dreams raised about being viewed as first-class citizens, only to have our hopes dashed time and again. Solution. Stop giving your vote to someone who does not speak to your interests. Organize in blocks, if you have to, of people and collectively say, we will vote for this person based on their being courageous enough to speak to the things that are important to us and that impact our lives. And if they don't do what they say, they'll never get our vote again. And stop voting for people that don't do nothing. Need some young blood. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I ain't talking about no but this is the history of the African American vote. And be not so presumptuous as to conclude by hearing that title or theme from the Association for the Study of African American History and Life. As to conclude, you have nothing to do but be proud that you have your stick on. Just say, I voted, and continue to live in a condition of second-classmanship.
Pastor Wilson, thank you so much. You brought the history lesson, gave us all something to think about in terms of how valuable our vote is, and not to let anyone take that for granted. And I hope everyone is encouraged by the message that Pastor Wilson shared with us tonight. And again, as I always do, take it seriously. Our vote is important. It is important. So find those candidates that represent you and what you stand for. And as Pastor Wilson said, don't let them take you for granted. Okay. So again, thank you, Pastor Wilson. We appreciate you coming out and blessing us with that message. And we've got just a few other things to share on the agenda. I'd like to go back to the acceptance of the motion for the acceptance of the minutes. We had a couple of additions that were made. Kyle, if I could have that. On page 1 of the minutes, under education panel discussion, Ms. Karen Williams, it was noted that she's no longer the president of the DC State Board of Education. She's the Ward 7 representative. So that correction was offered into the minutes. And on the back page, under general business at the bottom, we have an addition that the action taken by KP Associates is not a lawsuit. So that was asked to be added to the minutes. So with those additions, it was moved and can I get a second on acceptance of the minutes with the additions as noted?
Second.
Okay, moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion carried to accept the minutes as presented with the additions that were noted. And next we have on the agenda is our treasury report. Ms. Tawana, she just stepped to the back room to get some water for a moment. If you did not get a copy of the January treasury report, there were copies on the back table. So please grab one, and Tawana's going to come forward and review those expenses and share with us the balance that's in our treasury report. Ms. Tawana Bates.
Good evening, everyone. I didn't put copies of the treasury reports in the seats, but they were on the table as you came into the room tonight. So our balance last month, the month of December, was
You want to read it for you?
The ending balance from December 2019 was $3,361.26. Okay, and the withdrawals, flowers for the Chandler family was $90.08. The new membership cards for 2020 and 2021 was $220 for a total withdrawals of $310.08 with a January balance of $3,051.18.
Thank you, Jacqueline. This print was so small, I didn't work today, so I didn't get a chance to print my own copies, but thank you for printing this for me. So what we need to work on is encourage us to get new members in the community. As I said last month, we are up to like 120 members. I do have the new membership card, so if you haven't received yours, and if you paid your dues for 2020, I have the list here, and you can get your new card tonight.
Excellent, thank you, Tawana. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the January expense report as submitted. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes carry. The ayes have it, and the motion carried. The January PBCCA expense report for 2020 is now approved. And I will sign this and give it to the treasurer for the record. You're welcome. Membership, well, I see my daughter Veronica, the chair of the membership committee, arrived a few moments ago, but Tawana just gave us an update on the membership. Did you have anything to report in regards to memberships, Veronica?
No, not at this time.
Okay. If there are any new residents in the room tonight who haven't joined or who hasn't joined, who would like to join, please see Veronica before you leave this evening. Sandman, block captain?
I'm good.
Good? Do we have any block captains in the room tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know we do. I see at least two.
No.
Three. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
we have plenty.
My eyes, okay, we've got quite a few. We've got, please, block captains, please stand. Please stand and introduce yourselves. We got, I know Mr. Carter, Mr. Narda, over to my left. We got Susan.
Pennsylvania Avenue.
Okay. And Melinda. 3500 Awesome. I'm sorry, Janarda, you're representing
Texas Avenue.
Texas Avenue? And
Owens, Highwood Place.
awesome. And any, I saw a couple of other hands in the back, block captains. Miss Miley?
3500 block of Pope.
Awesome, thank you.
And
Linda?
Miss Molly, she's sick, but she's like 3600 block of Highwood, red hat.
Thank you. Let's give our block captains a round of applause. Thank you all so much. I always like to appreciate you, and I do believe you are the backbone of the community, so thank you so much for keeping us all informed.
We might miss Lance, right here. Lance of Texas Avenue.
Lance, we missed you. Thank you. All right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our official program for this evening. Again, I'd like to thank our guest speakers, Miss Ashley Emerson, Pastor Wilson. Thank you for coming out. We hope to see you again in the coming months, and for your engagement with the association. We have plenty of food left in the back. I'm anxious to get back there and get a plate myself. So please, everyone, keep in mind that the next meeting is on March 10th, 2020. Please plan on attending and bring a neighbor with you the next time. We want to pack the room and get as many neighbors out to the meetings as possible. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is officially adjourned, and we will see you next month. Good night.